Out here on the wide open plains, the wind still carries stories from long ago. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the sound of hooves thundering in the distance, the echo of songs rising from campfires, the heartbeat of a people who once ruled this land with courage and pride. This is the story of the Cheyenne Braves, the fierce defenders of the Great Plains. A story of honor, betrayal, and survival. Welcome to USA Tribes. Long before roads and railways cut through the heart of America, the Cheyenne lived free across the great grasslands. They were part of the Algonquian-speaking nations and once lived near the Great Lakes, farming corn and beans. But as time passed, they began to move west, following the trails of buffalo and trade. Out on the plains, everything changed. They left the forests behind and became masters of the open land. Hunters, riders, and warriors. The Cheyenne learned to live with the rhythm of the seasons and the movement of the buffalo herds. They became one with the earth and sky. For the Cheyenne, the land wasn't just dirt and grass. It was alive. The wind had a voice. The rivers carried spirits. And every living thing was part of a greater circle. The buffalo was at the center of that circle, a sacred animal that gave them food, clothing, shelter, and tools. Hunting the buffalo wasn't only for survival, it was a sacred duty. Their lives followed the herds, and every part of the animal was used with respect. They built their homes from buffalo hides and told their children that every hunt was a gift from the Creator. The Cheyenne lived in tight-knit bands, and each person had a role. Chiefs were chosen for their wisdom and generosity, not their wealth. The people admired those who shared what they had and stood bravely in battle. Among their warriors were special groups known as societies, and none were more respected than the dog soldiers. These warriors were fearless. They protected their people and upheld the laws of the tribe. When they went to battle, some would tie their sashes to the ground, a promise that they would not retreat no matter the cost. They were the living symbol of Cheyenne's strength and pride. But as the 1800s unfolded, change swept across the plains like a storm. Settlers began moving west, claiming land that had always belonged to native nations. The United States government made promises through treaties, but those promises were often broken as soon as gold or land was discovered. The Cheyenne tried to keep the peace at first, but peace was hard to find when the world around them was crumbling. Then came one of the darkest moments in their history, the Sand Creek Massacre. It was November of 1864 in Colorado Territory. A Cheyenne and Arapaho camp sat peacefully by the creek, flying both an American flag and a white flag of truce. At dawn, soldiers under Colonel John Chivington attacked without warning. Gunfire ripped through the camp. Tipis burned. Women, children, and elders were killed. Over 200 lives were lost in a matter of hours. The survivors carried the pain of that morning for generations. After Sand Creek, the Cheyenne could no longer believe in peace through promises. They rose up with fire in their hearts. Alongside their Lakota and Arapaho allies, they struck back at outposts and military camps. The dog soldiers led many of these battles. They moved like shadows across the plains, hitting fast, disappearing faster, fighting not for revenge alone, but for survival. One of the most powerful stories from this time is that of Buffalo Calf Road Woman. She wasn't just a bystander. She was a warrior. In 1876, at the Battle of the Rosebud, she rode straight into a hail of bullets to rescue her wounded brother. Her courage turned the tide that day, inspiring her people to victory. A few weeks later, she fought again at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, the same fight where Custer and his men met their end. Some say she was the one who struck the blow that brought Custer down. Whether that's true or not, her bravery became legend. She showed that strength among the Cheyenne was not bound by gender, only by heart. But the struggle did not end there. In 1868, just 4 years after Sand Creek, another tragedy struck: the Cheyenne camp of Chief Black Kettle. A man who had always worked for peace was attacked by General George Custer's troops on the Washita River. Black Kettle and his wife were killed as they fled, along with more than 100 of their people. For the Cheyenne, it was another betrayal, another reminder that peace meant nothing to those who sought to take their land. By the 1870s, the U.S. government forced many Cheyenne to move south to what is now Oklahoma. For the Northern Cheyenne, it was a death sentence. The land was hot, dry, and full of disease. Food was scarce. Many fell sick, many died. It was then that 2 leaders, Dull Knife and Little Wolf, decided they could no longer stand by. They led their people north, back toward their homeland in Montana. It was a desperate journey, hundreds of miles through freezing weather, with soldiers in pursuit. The Cheyenne moved by night, fought when cornered, and buried their dead quietly in the snow. They were hunted like outlaws, yet they never gave up. Their journey became known as the Northern Cheyenne Exodus, one of the greatest acts of resistance in Native American history. Many perished, but the survivors finally reached their homeland. They had defied death, the army, and the odds. Their courage was proof that no force could erase their spirit. Even as the wars ended and the frontier began to close, the Cheyenne refused to vanish. They adapted, they endured, and they carried their culture forward. Their ceremonies continued in secret when the government tried to ban them. Their songs were sung quietly in the night. Their stories of the dog soldiers, of Sand Creek, of Buffalo Calf Road Woman were told again and again, so that no child would ever forget who they were. Life on reservations was hard. The government wanted to turn native children into something else, to strip them of their language and their traditions. But the Cheyenne held on. They knew that as long as they remembered their stories and spoke their language, their nation would live. Their prayers, their dances, and their sacred ways kept them connected to the land, even when fences and borders tried to divide them. Over time, their numbers grew again. The Northern Cheyenne settled in Montana, where their reservation still stands today. The Southern Cheyenne, together with the Arapaho, made their home in Oklahoma. And across both regions, their culture remains alive. They dance the same dances their ancestors once danced beneath the open sky. They honor their warriors. They teach their children the old songs. If you travel to Cheyenne country today, you'll still feel their presence. You'll see it in the faces of their people, in the pride of their powwows, in the way they speak of the land with reverence. The wind across the plains still carries their stories, just as it did centuries ago. The Cheyenne Braves were more than warriors. They were protectors of a way of life. They showed what it means to stand for something greater than yourself. They taught that bravery isn't only found on the battlefield. It's found in the will to endure, to hold on, to keep your spirit alive no matter what the world throws your way. Their legacy stretches far beyond the borders of their old hunting grounds. It lives in the strength of native nations across America, in the songs of survival that still rise from the heart of the plains. They remind us that freedom is not something given. It's something fought for, cherished and passed down. So tonight, when the sun sinks low and the wind moves through the tall grass, remember them. Remember the dog soldiers who stood their ground. Remember Buffalo Calf Road Woman. who rode through gunfire to save her brother. Remember Dull Knife and Little Wolf, who led their people home through snow and blood. Remember the Cheyenne Braves, who faced the impossible and survived. Their story is not just history, it's a heartbeat. It's the sound of a people who refused to be broken. It's the reminder that even when the world tries to erase you, your spirit can still rise, strong as the wind that sweeps across the plains. If this story spoke to you, take a moment to honor their memory. Subscribe to USA Tribes for more stories like this. Stories of courage, survival, and heritage that shaped the land we call home. Share this with someone who loves history, someone who believes the past still matters. Leave a comment and tell us what part of the Cheyenne story touched you the most. The Cheyenne Braves were, and always will be, the fierce defenders of the plains. Their spirit rides with every gust of wind, every shadow across the grass, every sunrise that touches the horizon. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep your heart brave, your spirit free, and remember, the past isn't gone. It's still here, whispering in the wind. This is USA Tribes.